Welcome to Wrestling's Hottest Audacious Takes, hosted by myself, Aaron Rift of NoDQ.com. In this video series, I read some of your boldest opinions about professional wrestling, and then I give my responses. Let's take a look at today's topics. Triple H is bad for business. From his match with Sting to his treatment of WCW guys to even now where he's added ring ads, emphasis on cringe celebrities, and cheap pops to become popular. I disagree with this one in all aspects. I think Triple H is one of the best performers in WWE history. I think he deserved all of the success he had as a wrestler, and as far as him running the company, I have been very entertained by WWE, and you have to keep in mind that Triple H has been in charge of creative in WWE. Some of the business decisions, that stuff is out of his hands. He is doing his job, and I think he does it very well. El Grande Americano is a shit gimmick. I liked Chad Gable as Chad Gable better. It also screws over the talent Penta has by having him get ass effed by a dumb gimmick every time he has a match. I disagree with this one. I think that El Grande Americano is a very entertaining gimmick. I know some people feel that Chad Gable deserves better and he should be in a higher position on the roster, but at the end of the day, WWE is entertainment. I find his character to be entertaining. I think it adds some depth to the television show. It's fun to watch, and at the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about. Chad Gable is getting television time on a regular basis. He's making good money, and he's putting smiles on people's faces. I'm a big fan. Being a Paul Heymon guy is overrated and done to death at this point. I can see where you're coming from because Paul Heymon has managed or represented a lot of people over the years, going back to WCW with the Dangerous Alliance, and then we have the notable guys like Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and then there were some people that he was with that didn't really go too far, guys like Ryback. But I still think that there is value in Paul Heymon. He's one of the best talkers of all time, and he can elevate a lot of people. With the right people, I think that they can be enhanced by having Paul Heymon ringside with them and part of their storylines. AEW is a wrestling company. WWE is a merchandise company and advertising platform. I think WWE is a wrestling company. I think AEW is a merchandise company and an advertising platform. I think they're both the same thing. They are both entertainment brands featuring men and women getting into a ring and pretending to dislike each other. Now, I understand where you're coming from, where AEW has more of an emphasis on the actual wrestling, while WWE is trying to be a successful business. So you are right in that regard, but really, both brands are trying to, or should be trying to, accomplish the same thing. Roxanne Perez is too small to be a professional wrestler. It is impossible to take her as a serious physical threat. I can see where you're coming from with that. I do think there's room for wrestlers that are on the smaller size. You can have your underdogs. I do believe that there is a place for Roxanne Perez in WWE, and she can be successful despite her being on the smaller side. Now, if you have several women at a similar size being pushed in a main event position, then you might have some credibility issues. I do think she would be better off as a babyface than a heel, because as a babyface, she can really latch on to that underdog role, similar to a Rey Mysterio. It's hard to believe Rey Mysterio as a heel, and that's why he's never been a heel, going out there and being dominant because he's on the smaller side. He's naturally going to be an underdog. And I think that that is the best role for Roxanne Perez, and you can do that, and she can find success in WWE. AEW is TNA with a bigger budget. I disagree with this because I feel like AEW is not really one specific brand or similar to a specific brand. I think AEW is very much a variety show, and they try to act like various promotions while trying to create their own identity. I could see elements of TNA though in AEW, but also I see elements of ECW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and even WWE. They might not admit that, but I do think they take things from WWE as well. If I was going to say that AEW was a bigger budget of any promotion, I would probably say ECW because of all the violence that we see on AEW shows. They really push the envelope in that regard, and that's what ECW was known for. And because of that, I feel like AEW is a bigger budgeted version of ECW more than anything else. But they really are their own entity. Here's a hot take. Jim Johnston was only great because he was so good at ripping off popular bands, especially Rage Against the Machine, DX, and the Stone Cold Steve Austin theme songs. I think that there's a difference between ripping off and being influenced by somebody. You look at WCW's theme songs, Chris Jericho's song, that was a clear ripoff of Pearl Jam. And Diamond Dallas Page's song, very similar to Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. WWE was a little bit more subtle, and I think Jim Johnston was influenced by various artists. And when it came to creating wrestling theme songs, he would go by what the wrestlers liked, what their personality was like. If they were into a certain band, Jim Johnston might use that band as an influence for the themes and the compositions that he came up with. So I don't really would call it ripping off. WCW Starrcade's 1997 finish had absolutely nothing to do with WCW's eventual ending. There really wasn't any one specific segment that led to WCW's demise. I think a lot of people point to Starrcade 97 as the beginning of the end of WCW, and I think it was the first real chink in the armor of WCW. It was, in a way, the Titanic hitting the iceberg. Business did stay good for a very long period of time after that. Over a year, WCW continued to do well, and they were successful. But that finish really showed that WCW could not deliver after 18 months of buildup. All that hype, and then it fell flat. And to me, that was a real sign that WCW was in trouble. I do think it played a role. Was it the biggest factor? Not necessarily, but I do think it had something to do with WCW's ultimate downfall. That concludes this edition of Wrestling's Most Audacious Takes. What were your thoughts on these opinions? Leave a comment and subscribe to the No DQ YouTube channel for the latest wrestling news and discussion.